Shut up and don't fight, fat girl. Mountain man kidnapped the wrong obese woman. Then fell in love. Shut up and don't fight, fat girl. The words slammed into her harder than his arm around her waist. Beatrice Hartley's scream was cut off as a rough hand clamped over her mouth, dragging her off the dusty road and into the shadow of the pines. One moment she was standing on the step of Victoria Blackwell's glossy black carriage, helping the elegant lady back in after shopping. The next, her feet were kicking uselessly in the air, crinoline and blue silk tangling around her legs. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," the man growled in her ear. "You'll only get hurt if you thrash." She was not small. At 5'3" and well over 240 pounds, Beatrice had been told her whole life that she took up too much space, that she was too heavy to lift, too much to carry. But this stranger, this mountain of a man, flung her over his shoulder as if she weighed nothing. She heard the coachman shout, a gun being fumbled for, hooves stamping in panic. "Miss Blackwell!" the driver yelled. "Miss Blackwell!" Of course he thought she was Vivian. Beatrice tried to scream that she wasn't, that she was no one important, just the poor companion who wasn't even allowed to sit inside the carriage. But the stranger's grip tightened, his voice a low snarl. "I said shut up. One sound and I break his neck before he can fire." The coachman's curse split the air, then a sharp thud, a choked groan. Beatrice twisted enough to see the driver crumple to the road, pistol skittering away. The big man swung into the saddle with her still slung over his shoulder. Then the world became a blur of speed and terror. Trees, sky, pain where his shoulder dug into her stomach. She had been laughed at, pitied, ignored her whole life. But this was different. This was pure naked fear. Her hands, tied with coarse rope, burned as she tried to wriggle free. Every time she struggled, he slapped her thigh sharply. "I told you not to fight," he muttered. "You're not here to die. You're here so your sister pays." Vivian doesn't have a sister. Some small rational part of her thought wildly. He really has no idea who he's taken. Hours later, when the horse at last slowed, Beatrice was shaking so hard she could barely stand when he set her on her feet. A cabin crouched in a clearing high in the Sierra Nevada, all dark timbers and shuttered windows, smoke coiling from the chimney into a blood-red sunset. The man untied the rope from the horse post, but left it around her wrists. He pushed the door open with a boot, then shoved her inside. She stumbled, fell to her knees on the rough plank floor, lungs burning. When she looked up, she saw his face clearly for the first time. Black hair tied back, beard shadowing a strong jaw, eyes an icy, unnatural blue studying her with a calculating chill. He pulled a worn photograph from his pocket and glanced from it to her. Frown, deepening, too round, wrong eyes, wrong hair. Damien Ashford's jaw clenched. "She's not Vivian Blackwell," he whispered to himself. Then he shut the door, and the bolt slid home. Beatrice Hartley had always known her place in the world. She was the girl who walked 3 steps behind her prettier friends. The girl invited to parties only to fill space. The girl wealthy families tolerated because she was quiet, polite, and willing to carry their packages. Vivian Blackwell treated her better than most, offered her hand-me-down dresses, invited her to tea, let her sleep in a spare room of the Blackwell mansion after her mother died. But even Vivian never let her sit in the carriage. Companions didn't sit with society women. Companions sat with the driver. Because companions were disposable. Beatrice had accepted all of this until today. She sat trembling on the wooden floor of the stranger's cabin, wrists raw from rope, breath hitching as she finally forced words through her cracked voice. "I'm not Vivian," she whispered. You made a mistake." The man, Damien Ashford, did not immediately answer. He lit a lantern, its orange glow softening none of the harsh lines of his face. He stared at her the way a starving wolf might evaluate a trap. "You were wearing her dress," he said. "Vivian gave it to me." Beatrice's voice shook. She said it didn't fit her shoulders. She let me borrow it. Please, sir, if you bring me back, no one will know." "No." Damien's answer came sharp, final. "It's too late. You've seen my face. You've seen my home." "I won't tell," she cried. "Please, you don't understand. I don't matter to anyone. No one will ask where I've gone." He froze, and for the first time something flickered in those cold blue eyes. Something like recognition, because he too had once believed no one would save the person he loved. He sank into a chair, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly they turned white. "You shouldn't have been there," he murmured. "I planned this for 5 years, every detail, every route, every hour." His voice grew dark, almost hollow. "Vivian Blackwell was supposed to be the one I took. Her disappearance would shatter Victoria, break her, make her feel what she made my sister feel." Beatrice swallowed hard. "Your sister?" He didn't look at her when he spoke next. "Seraphina Ashford. She was 18. Victoria's men took her off the streets of San Francisco, sold her to the Red Lantern like cattle. She died choking on poison because death was kinder than the life they trapped her in." A shiver ran through Beatrice's spine, not from fear of him, but fear for him. Grief clung to his voice like frost. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You're sorry?" His laugh was sharp, bitter. "You are nothing to this war, a stranger wearing the wrong dress. I grabbed you, and I didn't even look. That mistake might cost me everything." He stood suddenly pacing like a caged panther. "If I let you go, you run to Victoria. She will know Ashford blood still hunts her. She will hide her crimes deeper. She will slip away again." Beatrice shook her head urgently. "No, no, you don't understand. Vivian would never tell her sister anything. Vivian doesn't know the first thing about Victoria's business. She thinks her sister funds charities, and I certainly wouldn't go to that woman." Damien paused, turned, looked at her. "Why?" Beatrice's heart pounded. She had kept this locked in her chest for years, but now, trapped in this cabin, misunderstood, misjudged, she let it break free. "Because Victoria Blackwell killed my mother." The silence that followed felt like the whole forest stopped breathing. Damien stepped closer, slow, predatory, but not in threat, more in disbelief. "Explain." Beatrice's voice trembled, but she did not look away. "My mother was a housekeeper for the Blackwells for 10 years. She saw things, papers, names, lists. She knew what Victoria was doing. She tried to gather proof. She planned to go to the police." Damien's breath hissed in. "And?" "She died." Beatrice's tears came hot and sudden. "They said it was her heart. But I knew Victoria did something. My mother was healthy. She didn't just fall over dead." Damien stared at her, really stared for the first time. Her soft brown eyes, her trembling chin, her truth. "You hate Victoria too," he said softly. "I want justice," Beatrice whispered. "But I'm only one girl. No money, no voice, no power. No one listens to someone like me." Damien knelt before her, so unexpected she flinched. "Someone should," he said. She looked up at him, breath catching. "And maybe," he added, voice lower, "you were not the wrong woman after all." Her throat tightened. For the first time since she'd been dragged into the woods, she no longer felt like prey. She felt seen. For a heartbeat too long, neither of them moved. Then Damien rose, cold mask sliding back over his features. "You stay here until I decide what to do with you." But the way he closed the door, slower, less violent, betrayed him. He no longer saw her as a mistake. He saw her as part of his fate. The next morning, Beatrice woke to the sound of an axe splitting wood outside. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the shutters, laying pale gold stripes across the small cabin room. Her wrists were no longer tied. Someone had cut the rope while she slept. Damien. She sat up slowly, palms pressed to the quilt beneath her. It was clean, thick, too fine for a man who lived like a ghost in the mountains. She touched the stitching. Tiny, careful, handmade. Seraphina's, she guessed. A pang of sorrow for a girl she had never met settled in her chest. Outside, the rhythmic thud of axe against log continued. She stood, heart pounding, and approached the door. She tested the handle, unlocked. She eased it open and stepped into the morning cold. Damien stood in the clearing, shirtless despite the frost, muscles moving like coiled steel as he raised the axe and brought it down. Wood split cleanly, scattering chips. He didn't look at her, but his voice carried. "You're free to walk the perimeter, not past the tree line." "Why?" she asked softly. "Because I said so." She wrapped her arms around herself and watched him stack the split wood. Each movement was methodical, disciplined, controlled. The man was a storm buried beneath ice. "Do you always wake this early?" she asked. "I don't sleep much." He set another log. "Nightmares." "Of Seraphina?" He paused. A long, aching pause. "Yes." Beatrice stepped closer, careful, gentle, like approaching a wounded predator. "You don't have to carry all of it alone." Damien shot her a glance. "I've carried worse." She didn't argue. He looked the type to chew through his own shackles rather than admit weakness. Instead, she said, "May I help with something?" That caught him off guard. "Help?" "With chores, with whatever you need. I can't just sit inside doing nothing." He wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, studying her as if trying to find the trick hidden behind her offer. "You're my hostage," he reminded her. "Then let me earn my keep." He exhaled, not quite a laugh. "Fine. Follow me." He led her to a small garden patch choked with weeds. "I've been meaning to clear this for weeks." Beatrice knelt immediately, pulling weeds with quick, practiced movements. Her mother had loved gardens. She'd taught Beatrice every plant, every herb, every way soft hands could coax life to bloom. Damien watched her for a moment, invisible surprise softening his features. "You're good at that." "Plants make sense," she murmured. "People don't," he grunted. "Can't argue with that." As the morning passed, they fell into an unlikely rhythm. Her tending the garden, him chopping wood, both stealing glances at the other when they thought they wouldn't be caught. During lunch, he placed a bowl of stew in front of her. She blinked at him. "You made this?" "Yes." He folded his arms. "Don't look so shocked." I didn't think you cooked." "I can cook. I just don't bother." She tasted it. It was good. Not perfect, but hearty and warm. "Thank you." Damien looked away, ears reddening beneath his hair. "Eat." Later that afternoon, she worked inside the cabin, sweeping, dusting, washing dishes. He tried to stop her once. "You don't need to." Damien, she interrupted gently, it's something to do. It keeps my mind calm. He didn't argue again. That evening they sat by the fire. Beatrice mended a tear in his shirt. Damien shaped arrowheads at the table. Silence stretched between them, not hostile, not heavy, comfortable. Finally she broke it. Why did you bring me food last night? He didn't look up. You needed to eat. You could have left me tied. You could have starved me. I'm not a monster. She watched him quietly. No, you're not. His jaw tightened. You don't know me. I'm learning. Damien set the arrowhead down and met her gaze fully for the first time since dragging her into the woods. Why aren't you afraid of me? Beatrice swallowed. I was. I still am sometimes, but you've lost someone. So have I. And underneath everything, you don't want to hurt people. You want justice. That matters. He leaned back, eyes unreadable. You see too much. I see enough. A breath passed between them, soft, warm, tentative. Then Damien stood abruptly. We leave at dawn. She stiffened. Leave? You're not staying here forever, he muttered. Not like this. If you know something about Victoria, if you truly want to stop her, we're going to need evidence. Real evidence. Her pulse jumped. You believe me now? His voice was low, almost rough. I want to. She pressed a hand to her chest. What should I do? At dawn, he said. I take you into civilization, in disguise. We start investigating. Beatrice nodded slowly, but inside her heart, a different realization pulsed. For the first time since her mother died, someone was fighting with her, not against her. Damien watched her for one more lingering moment, then turned his eyes back to the fire, its glow reflected in the shards of his broken past. The Sierra Nevada nights were colder than Beatrice expected. Even with the fire burning low, the chill crept through the cabin walls as if searching for the weakest heart to settle inside. She lay awake on the narrow cot Damien had set up for her, staring at the wooden beams above her head, replaying every strange moment of the last few days. Kidnapped, mistaken for someone else, yet protected, fed, seen. When dawn broke, she rose quietly and stepped outside. Damien was already awake, saddling the horses. Frost glittered like silver dust on the pine needles around him. He didn't look at her when he spoke. You should eat. There's bread on the table. Did you sleep at all? She asked softly. Don't worry about me. But she did. More than she should. They rode out together down the narrow trail leading toward the nearest town. Beatrice clung to the saddle horn, the horse moving beneath her like a restless heartbeat. Damien rode ahead, posture straight, gaze sharp. He didn't speak for nearly an hour. Then, You're cold, he said abruptly. She blinked. I'm fine. You're shivering. A moment later, he pulled his horse beside hers and draped his heavy wool coat over her shoulders before she could protest. It smelled like pine smoke and steel and something she could only think of as him. She swallowed. Thank you. He clicked his tongue, urging his horse forward. Don't fall behind. They reached the outskirts of Marigold Bend by late morning, a mining town tucked between mountains full of saloons, trading posts, and narrow-eyed locals who cared more about rumors than facts. Damien dismounted first, scanning the street. Beatrice hesitated until he gave her a curt nod. Stay close. Don't speak unless I tell you. If someone recognizes you, everything falls apart. Recognizes me? She murmured. I'm not exactly a woman people remember. Damien stopped walking. Slowly, he turned toward her. His voice was low but firm. People remember kindness. People remember warmth. People remember someone who looks them in the eyes instead of through them. She stared at him, stunned. "Don't talk about yourself like you're invisible," he said. "Not around me." Her throat tightened. She had never been defended like that. Not by anyone, not ever. Inside the general store, Damien questioned the clerk about recent shipments to the Blackwell mansion. Beatrice wandered the shelves, pretending to study bolts of fabric while listening closely. When Damien stepped outside to check the back entrance for records, she was approached by two local women. One of them, sharp-nosed and thin as dried corn husk, looked her up and down. "You're new," she sniffed. "From the city?" "Visiting," Beatrice replied, keeping her voice steady. "Hmm?" The woman's gaze slid over her size, her plain face, her borrowed coat. "Women your build usually work the kitchens or laundry." Her cheeks burned. She lowered her eyes. Before she could answer, Damien's voice cut through the doorway like a blade. "Is there a problem?" Both women startled. The sharp-nosed one forced a smile. "No trouble, Mr. Ashford. Just chatting." "That's so?" Damien stepped closer, standing beside Beatrice, not in front of her. "Because from where I'm standing, it looked like you were insulting someone who hasn't said a word to you." The woman paled. I didn't mean—" "You did," he said. "I heard it." She grabbed her friend's sleeve. "We should go." They scurried out like frightened hens. When they were gone, Beatrice whispered, You didn't have to do that." Damien's expression didn't change, but his jaw flexed. "If someone thinks they can belittle you, they answer to me." Her breath hitched. The man who had dragged her through the woods like a sack of flour now stood at her side as if she were someone worth defending. He cleared his throat. "Come on, we're done here." They walked back to the horses. Beatrice clutched his coat tighter around her, not for warmth this time, but because it felt like a shield. When they returned to the cabin that night, she cooked a meal from the supplies he'd bought. She moved around the small kitchen with quiet confidence, the smells of roasted vegetables and herbs filling the space. Damien sat at the table, sharpening a hunting knife, though his eyes lifted to her every few moments. When she set the plate before him, he paused. "This is more than I expected." She smiled shyly. "I wanted to thank you for today." "You don't have to thank me for doing what's right." He took a bite, froze, looked at her again. Different this time, softer. "This is good?" "Really?" Her face lit up. "Really?" Later, after dinner was done and the dishes washed, they sat by the fire. He remained at the table, working on arrows. She curled in the chair nearest the flames, darning one of his shirts. "Why are you doing that?" he asked quietly. "It's ripped. I have others. That doesn't mean this shouldn't be mended." He watched her hands move, gentle, careful, skilled. After a long silence, he spoke again, voice lower. "You're not afraid of me anymore." Her needle paused mid-stitch. "I'm learning who you are." Damien's eyes darkened. "Who do you think that is?" "A man who hurts," she said softly, "but not a man who hurts others." The knife slipped in his hand. He set it down quickly. "Beatrice," he said, and her name in his voice felt like a confession. "You shouldn't trust me." She met his gaze across the firelight. "I trust what I see." Something cracked in his expression, just for a heartbeat. Then he stood abruptly. "We leave again in 3 days. Rest. You'll need it." But when he turned toward his room, he hesitated. "Beatrice." "Yes?" "Thank you for the shirt and the food and—" He trailed off, searching for words. "And for not treating me like a monster." Her heartbeat fluttered. "You're not," she said. He left the room without another word, but he closed the door gently behind him. 3 days later, the sky over the Sierra Nevada turned the color of bruised steel. Storm winds crawled through the pines, shaking needles loose like whispers of warning. Beatrice stood at the window of the cabin, hands folded close to her chest, watching Damien saddle the horses again. They had grown used to each other's presence in a way neither could explain. She filled the silence with warmth. He filled it with steady, unspoken protection. Their uneasy alliance had shifted, softened, stretched into something neither dared to name. But that morning, something about Damien was different, harder, sharper, coiled. "What's wrong?" she asked as he stepped back inside. He didn't answer at first. He shut the door, bolted it, checked the windows. Only when he was certain no one was within earshot did he turn to her. "What I found in town last time," he said, "wasn't nothing." A tremor worked through her. "What do you mean?" He pulled a folded envelope from his coat. "The shipment records for the Blackwell mansion. The clerk said they were routine supplies, food, linens, alcohol." She nodded. "That sounds right. Vivian hosts a lot of gatherings." "Not these," Damien said, pushing the envelope into her hands. Beatrice opened it. Inside were copies of 2 manifests. She scanned the pages, casks, crates, barrels. Then something stopped her breath cold. 26 units of imported medicinal laudanum," she whispered. "That's impossible. Vivian fainted last year, and the doctor prescribed 1 bottle. Why would they need 26? Damien's jaw set. "They're not using it as medicine." She looked up slowly. "They're drugging people." "They're preparing something," he said. "Something big. Something worse than what they did to your mother." Her pulse fluttered violently. "Damien, what are you saying?" "That Victoria's network isn't shrinking," he said grimly. "It's expanding, and someone tipped her off. Someone knows I've been digging." He paced the length of the room, breathing hard. "Someone in Marigold Bend recognized you." Beatrice stiffened. "But I didn't speak to anyone except those 2 women." "Women talk," Damien cut in, "and gossip travels faster than horses in this region. Someone told the wrong person that a woman matching your description has been seen with me." "What does that mean?" she whispered. He stopped pacing. It felt like the whole cabin held its breath. "It means," Damien said, voice low and dark, "Victoria knows you're alive." Beatrice sank onto the nearest chair, the world tilting around her. She'll come for me. She'll come for both of us." Silence settled like dust. "Damien," she whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag you into more danger." He stared at her as if she'd spoken nonsense. "You didn't drag me anywhere," he said. "I kidnapped you, remember?" "That was a mistake," she said softly. "A mistake I'd make again," he breathed. Her eyes lifted. Their gazes caught, held, tangled. Something moved between them, slow, inevitable, like gravity pulling 2 stars toward collision. But fate interrupted first. A knock thundered against the door, not gentle, not uncertain, a warning. Damien's entire body went rigid. "Stay behind me," he whispered. She obeyed instantly, heart pounding against her ribs as Damien approached the door with a silent, predatory step. He lifted the latch an inch, just enough to see out. Then he slammed it shut. His voice was a harsh whisper. "Go to the back room. Damien, now." Beatrice fled down the hall, heart roaring in her ears. She pressed herself behind the wood stove in the back room, crouching low, breath shaking. Outside voices rose. "Open up, Ashford," a man barked. "We know you're in there." Another voice followed, female, cold, amused. "It seems you've been busy, Mr. Ashford, busier than your reputation suggests." "Victoria." Beatrice's blood froze. Damien's reply was calm, almost mocking. "Traveling all this way for a visit? I must be more important to you than I thought." "Not you," Victoria purred. "Her." Beatrice's lungs squeezed painfully. Damien arched a brow she couldn't see. "There is no her." "Oh, Damien," Victoria sighed. "You always were an unconvincing liar." A pause, long enough to be threatening. "The girl you kidnapped wears my sister's dress. Surely you didn't think no one would notice an unrefined thing like her stomping around town?" Beatrice pressed a hand over her mouth to silence her whimper. Damien spoke again, tone dripping with ice. "If you're here for Vivian, you've wasted your time." "I'm here for the fat servant girl," Victoria snapped. Something shattered inside him. She heard it in the way he exhaled, a sound part fury, part something far deeper. Beatrice expected him to deny her existence again. Instead, "You're not taking her?" The world stopped. Victoria laughed. My. Protective, are we? How interesting. Let's make this easy. Step aside, hand her over, and I'll let you keep breathing." "No." The cabin fell silent. Victoria's voice dropped to a hiss. "Damien Ashford, you will regret defying me. I have 20 men outside. You cannot win." "I have something they don't," Damien said. "What?" "A reason." A gun cocked. Someone shouted. Boots thundered against the door. Beatrice curled tighter in her hiding space, tears streaming silently. Not because she feared dying, but because the man she should have feared from the start now stood ready to fight an army for her. Damien's voice came one last time, steady as stone. "You'll have to kill me to reach her." Outside, Victoria's order cracked like a whip. "Break the door!" The cabin shook with the first blow. The first strike hit the cabin door so hard that dust rained from the rafters. The wood bowed inward, groaning like an injured animal. Beatrice pressed both hands over her mouth, knees pulled tight to her chest, praying that somehow the walls would hold. They wouldn't. Not against 20 armed men, not against Victoria's ruthlessness, not against the truth now burning between her and Damien. Outside, a voice shouted, "Again!" The next blow cracked the hinges. Damien grabbed his rifle from above the mantel and cocked it. Muscles carved from years of survival tightened beneath his shirt. He moved with lethal calm, like a man who had walked into death before and survived purely out of spite. "Damien," Beatrice whispered, trembling, "you can't fight them all." "I don't need to fight them all." His voice was quiet, steady. "Just long enough." "For what?" He didn't answer. He simply stepped back from the door, raised the rifle, and waited. The third blow split the panel. An eye peered through the crack. Damien fired. The man outside screamed, stumbling back. Chaos erupted. Shouts, curses, boots scrambling. Someone yelled, "He shot Carter! Take him down!" Gunfire exploded. Bullets punched through the cabin walls, tearing splinters into the air like wooden shrapnel. Damien ducked low, grabbed Beatrice's arm, dragging her from the back room into the kitchen. "Down," he ordered. She dropped behind the heavy oak table as he shoved it onto its side, creating a makeshift barrier. Bullets thudded into it, rattling her teeth with each impact. "Stop!" Victoria's shrill voice rose above the gunfire. "Don't kill him yet, idiots! I want the girl alive!" Damien snarled under his breath. "Of course she does!" Beatrice trembled. "Please, please don't do this for me. They'll kill you." He glanced at her. "No, looked at her, his eyes burning with a protectiveness so fierce it nearly stole her breath. "They won't touch you," he said. "Not while I breathe." The door burst open. 4 men stormed inside, guns raised. Damien moved like a shadow, fast, silent, terrifying. He slammed his shoulder into the first man's chest, knocking him backward into the others. A fist, an elbow, a knee. 3 bodies dropped in seconds. The 4th grabbed Beatrice by the arm. "There you are," he hissed. "Victoria will pay plenty for you." Damien was on him in an instant. His fist crashed into the man's jaw. Bone cracked. The attacker crumpled, unconscious before he hit the floor. Damien stood over him, chest heaving, eyes wild. And then he did something she didn't expect. He cupped her face with both hands. "Are you hurt?" Her breath shook. "No." His thumbs brushed tears from her cheeks, gentle where his hands had been brutal seconds before. "Good." More voices approached the door, more boots, more guns. Beatrice clutched his shirt. "Damien, please, run! Leave me! Save yourself!" He froze. Then anger, pure, sharp, devastating, flashed across his face. "Leave you?" he repeated, voice almost a growl. "You think I could walk out that door without you?" She shook her head desperately. "If you stay, if I stay," he whispered, leaning close, "it's because I choose to, because you're worth choosing." Her heart stopped, truly stopped. Another crash hit the cabin. Smoke began seeping through the cracks. Someone shouted, "Smoke them out!" Damien pulled her to her feet. "We're leaving." "How? They're everywhere." He grabbed her waist, lifting her as though she weighed nothing. "Through the back window. I'll get you to the river. The current will hide our trail." She stared at him, stunned. "Damien!" He looked at her then, really looked. At the fear in her eyes, the determination, the softness that had changed everything inside him. "I won't let them take you," he said quietly. "I would burn this whole mountain down before I let that happen." Her knees nearly gave out. Smoke thickened, filling the air with bitterness. Damien smashed the back window open with one hard strike. "Beatrice," he murmured, lifting her through the frame, "hold on to me, whatever happens." She nodded, tears streaming. He climbed out after her just as the front door finally gave way behind them. Victoria's voice shrieked inside the cabin, "Find them, now!" But Damien had already taken Beatrice's hand and pulled her into the forest darkness. They ran. Branches whipped against their clothes, snapping beneath Damien's boots as he tore through the darkness with Beatrice's hand locked tightly in his. Smoke rolled over the treetops behind them. Shouts echoed, growing louder, angrier, closing in. "Faster!" Damien urged, though his breath was already ragged. "We're close." Beatrice stumbled over a jutting root, almost falling. Damien caught her before she hit the ground, one arm around her waist, holding her upright. "I'm slowing you down," she gasped. "You're alive," he answered. "That's all that matters." They reached the riverbank just as lantern light began flickering through the trees behind them. The river roared, fast, freezing, violent, a vicious spring current tearing through jagged rocks. Beatrice's eyes widened. "Damien, we'll drown." "Not if you trust me." Boots pounded behind them. Victoria screamed, "Shoot if you have to, but bring me that girl." Beatrice flinched. Damien steadied her face in both hands. "Look at me." She did, and the world narrowed to the storm in his blue eyes. "I didn't understand it at first," he whispered, breath shaking. "Why I couldn't sleep unless I heard you breathing in the next room. Why I checked the door twice every night. Why every time you smiled, I felt like the man I used to be." Her heart trembled violently. "Damien!" He leaned his forehead against hers. "I kidnapped the wrong woman that day, but God help me, Beatrice. You are the only woman I want now, the only one I would die for." She choked on a sob. "You won't die. Not for me. Not today." He kissed her, quick, fierce, desperate, like a promise made in the dark. Then the first bullet hit the tree beside them. Damien grabbed her hand. "Hold on to me. Don't let go. Not even for a second." She didn't hesitate. They plunged into the river together. The shock of icy water stole her breath. The current ripped at their bodies, dragging them downstream with terrifying force. Beatrice clung to Damien's shirt with both fists, legs kicking uselessly against the surge. Damien kept one arm locked around her waist, the other fighting the current, pulling her toward the deeper, calm bend far downstream, the one he knew, the one that could save them. Beatrice sputtered, "Damien, I can't breathe." "Yes, you can." His voice was hoarse but unbroken. "I've got you. I'm not letting you go." Gunfire faded. Shouts were swallowed by the roar of water. Little by little, the current slowed. They drifted into the calmer shadows beneath overhanging boulders. Damien dragged them onto the riverbank, collapsing to his knees, chest heaving as he pulled Beatrice into his arms. "You're safe," he whispered into her soaked hair. "You're safe now." She clung to him, shaking. "Not without you." He lifted her face, thumb brushing water from her lips. "You have me," he said softly. "If you'll have me too." Lightning cracked overhead. Thunder rolled, and in that quiet space between storm and breath, Beatrice pressed her forehead to his. "I choose you, Damien, even in the dark." His breath left him. For the first time in years, he felt hope. If you've stayed with this story until now, thank you. Every time I see your comments, I'm reminded that stories like this don't just live in the old mountains of the American West. They live in us, in every one of you, listening from your home, your night shift, your long bus ride, your quiet room somewhere in the world. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? And if a part of you still believes that even the wrong turn in life can lead to the right person, then don't go far. The next story is already on its way, written just for you.